So it's an exciting day for me every year. I think we've had you guys here over 20 years, but we've got Stacy with OSU Extension, and we've got Logan here with Eastern Oklahoma State College. Every year after the Osage County 4-H Livestock Show, the Junior Livestock Show, the steers, a lot of the steers come here, and then you're going to go back there and we're going to grade these animals. But Stacy, why don't you just tell me a little bit about OSU Extension and what you guys do there for these kids?
So at OSU Extension, we have a big kind of broad base of agriculture, family and consumer science. Then we work with 4-H kids, and through the family or through the agriculture part and the 4-H part, these kids get to develop their livestock skills, how to feed, how to care, how to raise. Some of them even get to the point where they breed their own. And so they get to see the process from start to finish by doing this carcass contest. And then we bring in judges like Logan, and they come in and they judge these carcasses. But it's kind of like that process of, I either, I raised it, I fed it, I took care of it, and this is my final product, and this is how I'm going to contribute to the agriculture industry,
which is
now
huge,
and further.
Huge for the processor, because one of the things that we always say around here is not all beef are created equal. Mm-hmm. You can't bring us cucumber seeds, expect us to harvest watermelons, and this actually takes the process of showing this steer, but yet then bringing Logan in here to actually get us a grade mm-hmm. on that animal, on that beef. So what are we looking for back there today, Logan?
So what we're going to do is essentially get a yield grade, so the numerical value of what the carcass is, and then we're also going to get a quality grade. And that's going to tell us how much marbling is within that ribeye. So most of the time when consumers go to stores, they're going to purchase it, select, choice
or prime.
So just to kind of give those kids a better idea, because I do think it's a great thing what they do, for these kids to be able to not just show an animal, but hey, why are we showing them? What do we get, from livestock at their endpoint? And so they actually get to see that data. They get to see, hey, this is what my carcass actually produced. So it kind of goes back to, giving them a better understanding of production agriculture.
Yeah, and you've got, I love meat judging. You actually teach meat judging, or at Eastern Oklahoma State?
So I coach the meat judging team at Eastern, and then also teach meat and food science classes.
Meat and food science there.
Yeah.
Show me the tool you brought today.
So I brought just kind of a standard grid. So we're going to use this to measure the actual ribeye area, and that'll get us a size in terms of square inches. And then I've also got a set of grading cards from the USDA. And so if there's one that we think is questionable, we'll be able to reference these cards and kind of see, is it, high select, low choice.
Where we're at. And we're going to do 6 today. Yep. Let's go check them out, man. Let's do it.
All right, so what we're going to do first is use a probe. We'll get a fat thickness measurement on the outside of the ribeye. So we're looking for fat thickness somewhere 3/4 of the way down opposite side of the ribeye. Once we do that, we'll take our probe, or our grid, we'll lay it up here, and we're going to actually count these dots and see just how many square inches this ribeye is. So those are things that are going to factor into our final yield grade. And then once we do that, we'll look at just the actual marbling within the ribeye face, so this fat that's inside the eye. We're going to look at this, and this one's going to be probably a mid-range choice, and we'll just kind of double check that here in a minute. So we're going to start with number 1 right here. The first thing that we do is we're going to come up and take a measurement right here so we can see what the preliminary yield grade is, so our initial yield grade. From there, after we get this fat thickness, we're going to look at the entire ribeye area, and then after that we'll make adjustments accordingly depending on how much the entire carcass itself weighs. And then once we do that, we look at the KPH, or the kidney, pelvic, and heart fat, and that'll be our last adjustment to make for that yield grade. And this one's going to be kind of a mid-range 3 yield grade, so more of a common, kind of a typical, something that's desirable in terms of a yield grade. So it's got a very acceptable yield grade, and then also the amount of marbling that we have, or intramuscular fat. On this one, we graded it average choice, so again, a very acceptable, very good quality grade for number 1. So this is number 2 right here. Again, same thing. We're looking for the fat thickness. This one had about 0.7. After we went through our calculations, it also was a mid-range 3 in terms of yield grade, and then also graded average choice in terms of marbling. Some slight differences between 1 and 2. Had a kind of a larger ribeye area and some coarser textured marbling, but still 2 very good ribeyes to look at. So this is carcass number 3. Again, this one actually had quite a bit lower numerical yield grade than the ones that we looked at previously. It was a high 1, so a leaner carcass. We can tell that just by looking at the exterior fat thickness, opposite side of the ribeye, and then also just the carcass throughout itself. A trimmer, leaner carcass. So with that, it had a lower yield grade. It also graded slightly lower than the ones we looked at before. This one ended up grading high select. So carcass number 4, as we get to this one, it had some finer texture marbling, kind of one of the first things we noticed about this one. Preliminary yield grade was good. It was a mid-range 2, so a very good yield grade. And then also average choice for the quality grade, so very nice carcass, good coloring, good eye size. And then carcass number 5, again, kind of similar to number 3, leaner in texture, marbling, and also on the exterior fat, had less fat throughout the entire carcass. A low 2 for the yield grade, and then this one also graded high select. So number 6, the last carcass that we graded, this one had probably one of the smaller ribeye areas of the group that we looked at, just below 12 square inches in terms of ribeye area. So that affected its yield grade slightly. So we ended up grading this one a mid-range 3, called it low choice in terms of quality grade. So a little less marbling, but still good coloring, good carcass, good way to kind of end these 6 that we yielded quality grading.